Who can tell us when Caesar was assassinated?
The Ides of March.
One of the few dates that you'll memorize as a Latin student. It is obviously the Ides of March. It is the date of Caesar's assassination. Who was his wife at the time of his assassination? Technically, yes, he had two at the time. He had Calpurnia.
Cleopatra.
Right. As you may or may not remember, with Cleopatra, he had a child. What was the child's name?
Ptolemy. No.
Ptolemy was Cleopatra's brother.
Oh, God.
So they had a child together. The intent of Cleopatra's pregnancy was so that she could create an heir to Rome's throne, if you will. But one thing that you know about the Romans so far is that they're kind of intolerant of people who are not Roman. And because Caesarion was half Egyptian, he wasn't Roman enough to be considered in sort of the legacy of Caesar. Yeah? No, I mean, the idea that she sold Egypt is much more metaphorical and not 100% true. It's just that she kind of like gave away a lot of the power of Egypt to the Romans. Caesar had a will, and in Caesar's will, he named his own heir. Notice, Caesarion is a child, not named as the heir. His heir was actually his grandnephew, whose name was Octavian. Now, Octavian was about 18 or so when Caesar was assassinated. So, when Caesar's will stated that Octavian should inherit his power, the politicians in Rome were a little leery. I mean, number one, he had just been, well, I don't think it's creepy. He had just been assassinated, right? So we're not really sure if we want someone of Caesar's caliber around. We don't know if we want his kind around anymore.
The good king they kill.
And his kind is also his grandnephew. So he had two strikes against him. He was related to Caesar, so he shared genetics. And then, of course, he's very young. Yes?
So they killed him and they listened to his will?
Well, that's the thing. They didn't really listen to his will.
Wait, wouldn't 18 be kind of old back then? Like middle age?
It was probably approximately the time that a boy would,
Be a man.
well, yes, get married.
13 in my culture.
Okay. Good to know. All right. So, as you can imagine, a bit of a battle ensued. No, actually. The battle that ensued was Brutus and the other co-conspirators, who were basically defending their right to have killed Caesar and the legitimacy of their idea that Caesar was terrible. They fought against Octavian, who understandably was a little miffed at the whole Caesar, my great uncle was murdered situation. Octavian fought with Antony, which does not have an H, which is why it's Antony, who had been an ally of Caesar. He had been his friend. Yeah.
Didn't Antony also, wasn't he like the husband of Cleopatra at some point?
We're getting there. Yep. Yeah, you're like a half a chapter ahead of us. So this battle took place at Philippi.
Philippines?
No, but Philippi is a place in Greece, and follow me with this logic here. Philippi is a place in Greece that had some significance to the Christian religion. There's, if you're familiar with the Bible, there's a book of the Philippians, Yeah, and it's Paul's letter to the Philippians about Christianity. So the Philippines was, started as somewhat of a religious colony, and so it took its name from Philippi in Greece. There you go. And the world goes round and round. At the Battle of Philippi, Antony and Octavian, and, lots of other Roman nobles, they obviously didn't fight by themselves, they managed to win. They conquered and killed Brutus et al. So Brutus was thinking that he was representing sort of the wishes of the masses, and yet the nobles who were kind of, on the fence about Caesar to begin with were the ones who conquered them and basically told them, no, that was actually not an appropriate idea. So there's a lot of, confusion in Rome. After the Battle of Philippi, Octavian and Antony,
Octavian is pretty cool.
Yeah.
they form another triumvirate called the Second Triumvirate. And of course, as you can imagine from the name, you got to have another guy. They formed it with a guy named Lepidus. Not much is known about Lepidus, other than the fact, he doesn't have the legacy that Octavian and Antony do.
So Lepidus is kind of like JFK's vice president no one's heard about. Never really did anything.
Yeah, sure.
JFK's
The Roman world at that point was kind of stuck in civil war. So in the triumvirate, they divided Rome into 3 regions so that they could quell all the wars in 3 places at the same time. Lepidus was given control of Rome. Octavian was given control, I suppose, of Spain, Gaul, that area west of Rome. And then Antony was given control of that nebulous area known as the East. So for the East, we're talking about the eastern part of the Mediterranean. We're talking about Syria, Israel, countries like that. As you can imagine, one of the countries in the East with which he was charged to take control of was Egypt. As we said from the get-go, Egypt is a very rich province. There is a lot to be gained if you can have a functional relationship / ownership of, or ownership over, Egypt. And so Cleopatra approaches Antony, right? This is like exactly the same scenario that we had before. Yeah.
For Lepidus, his area was all
Rome. Yeah, sorry. Cleopatra approaches Antony. She's trying to have an alliance with him. And as you know, Cleopatra's very ambitious. She has her sights set on political domination. And so she begins to woo Antony. Yes?
How old is she at this point?
I would say early 20s. I don't know exact numbers like that. Sorry. So they embark on having an alliance. Cleopatra sees in Antony an opportunity to be with the winning class of people in Rome. Antony was a former ally of Caesar. Antony had a lot going for him. She chose Antony and decided, I'm going to be with the winning team. Yeah.
Wasn't Egypt wealthy then? Wouldn't they be like the winning team?
Say it again?
Wouldn't Egypt be like the wealthy class if they were so rich?
But they're still inferior in control to Rome. So they still have to get more of the upper hand to be more of like a partner. Yeah, Alexandria was their big city. Antony meets Cleopatra and falls in love.
Oh no.
Oh, boy.
So Cleopatra is in the relationship for political gain. Antony starts the relationship going with the political gain thing, but then falls for her in a romantic way and starts confusing the politics and the love all at the same time. He is totally smitten. He has several children with her. He tries to marry her. He kind of gets like stuck in Egypt because he's just in love. Octavian realizes that he has fallen down the rabbit hole and tries to get him back. He tries to get him back to Rome to help him rule. Antony makes up excuses. He tries to get him to be more favorable to Rome in his politics with Egypt. He starts favoring Egypt in some of the decisions that he's making. Octavian tries his final card. Octavian offers his sister, well, not really offers as much as assigns his sister as a wife.
Wait. His sister as a wife
To Antony.
Okay.
Yeah. Here, let's make our bond stronger. You can have my sister.
It's like
Sorry,
Caesar all
ladies.
over again.
It's, yeah, kind of like Caesar all over again. And Antony fought it. He's like, no, I have a wife. We're good. I have a relationship. I have kids. And Octavian said, no, you need to have a Roman wife. You need to have an upstanding citizen of Rome, i.e. my sister over here. Poor Octavian's sister. I mean, really. Antony is forced to marry her and then promptly moves back to Egypt and continues his relationship with Cleopatra. It's a little weird. So Octavian realizes that Antony is becoming more and more, what's a nice term for this? More and more sort of entrenched in his Egyptian ideas. A nice 15-year-old word. He's too obsessed with Egypt and, let's be honest, Cleopatra. In the movie Cleopatra, there's actually a really powerful scene that I'm not sure is 100% historically accurate. But allegedly, according to this movie, Cleopatra, Antony changed his will so that he could be buried in Egypt. What kind of Roman decides that he wants the rest of his eternal life to take place in Egypt, with Egyptian gods, with Egyptian language, with Egyptian people? A traitor is exactly how the Romans interpreted this and potentially many other actions. So Octavian realized that the only way to really get Antony back into the fold was to declare war. I'm abbreviating a little bit. You don't have to. So Octavian and his Roman forces declared war on Cleopatra and Antony. It ended up being a naval battle near a place called Actium in Greece. As it happens, Octavian happened to kind of grow up as a sickly kid. He missed a lot of school. He missed a lot of work. He happened to kind of miss this battle. The guy who took care of it for him was his trusted advisor and, as you can note, a skilled military leader named Agrippa. So Agrippa had the reins for Octavian. And Antony and Cleopatra sail into this battle. They're on separate ships because Antony has some of his Roman forces with him Cleopatra has her Egyptian forces with her. There are a lot of Roman ships from Octavian's side. And Antony's ship goes into the fray. Cleopatra sees smoke. She thinks that the smoke is coming from Antony's ship. She thinks the worst. My Antony has gone in to fight for me, and now he has died. The Romans have killed him. So Cleopatra retreats, and she goes back to Alexandria. Here's the kicker. The smoke wasn't coming from Antony's boat. So there's Antony in the fray of battle, standing up for his wife, and he sees his wife sailing home again. It's really like, a teenage movie at this point, right? It's like the first version of Twilight happening before your very eyes. Antony panics. He thinks that the very person that he's fighting for, that he's, going out on a limb for, fighting against his own country for, is abandoning him, going back to Alexandria. So he follows her because his allegiance to her is very fierce. He follows her back to Alexandria, and then they meet on the beach, and they have this, very classic, "I thought you were," kind of conversation. "But I thought, are you sure that wasn't you?" And now they don't know quite what to do. Well, they do know quite what to do. And the fact is that they have now shown themselves to be the losers in battle because they were the ones who left the scene of the battle. They have essentially committed some sort of political suicide because they have shown to Octavian and the Roman forces that they are not, worthy of the fight. Yeah?
How did Antony just go into the fray of the battle and just turn around and
Logistically, I don't know. I don't know. He must have some very fast rowers on his boat. I don't quite know how far he got into it. Maybe he didn't get that far when she saw smoke and she just wasn't putting it all together. I don't know.
Was there a Roman naval battle like? Did they jump on their ships and stuff, across ships and stab them? It's
more the stabbing and probably some sort of cannon, because there was smoke, right? So there has to be some sort of gunpowder effect. Yeah. On the shores of Alexandria, after this terrible realization between the two lovers, Antony and Cleopatra decide that they need to commit suicide. Yeah.
Is Cleopatra
Yes, not nearly as much as he is in love with her. Cleopatra decides that the most noble thing that she should do at this point is to commit suicide. So in a very famous way, she actually allows a snake to bite her and to poison her with his venom, which is kind of a really crazy, bold thing to do, but it's very Cleopatra from what you know about her, right? She doesn't just do this passively. She doesn't have a slave bring her poison. She's like, I am going to grin and bear it through the whole process. Antony, on the other hand, decides that he's going to stab himself. I mean, it's ancient Rome. We don't have as many resources as we do now. But in a very famous account of Antony that speaks to his character, apparently Antony could not bring himself to stab himself properly. So he ended up putting his sword on the ground and falling on it to sort of passively kill himself, which seems kind of cowardly in its own weird way, right? So with the two of them and their Egyptian threat gone, Octavian becomes the sole ruler of Rome. What's that?
the other guy? Look at this.
He died at some point in the past, but he's so inconsequential. He declares himself an emperor. He uses this term of princeps, which is a shortened form of being the first citizen. And as first citizen, with this title in place, he tries to make it seem like he is not the only one with the power. He tries to make it seem like He's just the guy who happens to be running the government out of so many guys who could also technically run the government, theoretically. I just happen to be the guy right now. What he turns it into, though, is essentially a monarchy, which is, of course, what the Romans had feared the whole time. When Caesar tried to be a monarch, he was killed for it, and yet Augustus, which is what he came to be known as, was hailed throughout the centuries as being this beloved guy. More on that later. Have a good weekend, everyone.